Motivation and engagement in serious games. Serious games are games that are intended to result in learning. If designed well, they engage the learner and motivate them. If designed poorly, they are simply poorly disguised training materials. Since motivation is important to serious game design and to learning, an understanding of theories of motivation is useful. 3 important theories are Csikszentmihalyi's flow theory, Keller's ARCS model of motivation, and Deci and Ryan's self-determination theory. Flow theory is not a motivational theory at its core. It is an examination of the optimal state of being, which Csikszentmihalyi states is the real way to achieve happiness. This optimal state of being is achieved in part through control over the contents of our consciousness. Flow is about gaining a sense of participation in determining the content of life, which leads to true happiness. Csikszentmihalyi doesn't give directions for achieving flow, but he does talk about what it looks like. Flow has the following attributes: intense concentration that is so deep that you lose track of outside stimuli like time or personal needs; engagement that silences the inner critic; feedback from sources such as other people or the results of the activity itself; challenge that is just outside of current abilities, but not so hard that it feels unachievable. There are some things that can be extrapolated from the description of flow. In order to reach this optimal state, a person would need to be motivated. Csikszentmihalyi states that, although flow is the optimal state, it's not always comfortable or easy while you are engaged. As a matter of fact, Csikszentmihalyi states that getting control of life is never easy, and sometimes it can be definitely painful. Getting a learner into a state of flow using serious games is a lofty goal, but a worthy one. In order to accomplish this goal, we can look to 2 theories that are more directly related to increasing motivation. Ryan and Deci's self-determination theory has utility in work, life, health, and learning. It states that motivation has many levels, with the highest or most important level being autonomous motivation. Autonomous motivation is self-driven. We act willingly and of our own volition. There are 2 types of autonomous motivation: intrinsic, which is to do something because we enjoy it and find it interesting, and internalized intrinsic. Extrinsic motivation is motivation from an external source. There are 4 types of extrinsic motivation: external, introjected, identified, and integrated. External motivation is simply motivation to obtain a reward or avoid punishment. Introjected motivation is our motivation to look good for people or avoid bad feelings like guilt. Identified motivation is taking action because we see the value in the outcome. And internalized motivation is motivation to do something because it's part of our identity. External and introjected motivation are reactive. We are taking action due to an outside force. On the other hand, identified and internalized motivation can be autonomous because we have internalized and accepted the results of our actions as beneficial to us. Flow theory and self-determination theory are models of optimization of internal processes. Flow theory paints a picture of optimal experience. Self-determination theory paints a picture of optimal motivation. The ARCS model, on the other hand, is a diagram of how to motivate others. In addition to a theory on the psychological framework of motivation, the ARCS model offers a systematic process for increasing it. Keller states that 3 psychological factors are at play in motivation: relevance, or our belief that the learning task has current or future value to us; confidence, or a belief that, with effort, we can succeed; and satisfaction, or a sense of pleasure. Satisfaction can be intrinsic or extrinsic in the form of rewards. The model Keller created can be integrated with other instructional design frameworks and bears a striking resemblance to ADDIE: define, design, develop, evaluate. In this case, however, we are evaluating the learner's motivation. Keller states that we should be careful not to conflate learning achievement with motivation, and instead should focus on factors like persistence, intensity of effort, emotion, and attitude. In spite of the differences in both approach and practical application, the theories share a number of underlying core concepts. Autonomy. Flow theory refers to a sense of participation in determining the content of life, which is clearly autonomy, and self-determination theory is based around autonomous motivation. Intensity. Flow theory requires intense concentration, and the ARCS model names intensity of effort as another measure of success. Feedback. The ARCS model lists feedback as a strategy to improve satisfaction, and feedback is a core attribute of flow theory. So how do we utilize these concepts when we're creating serious games? Create autonomy using game mechanics. Give the player options. Should they go backwards or forwards? Should they click on the help resources or take a guess? Increase intensity using story. A story that draws the player in and aesthetics that support the story help a learner to be in the world that they are learning about. Give the learner appropriate feedback throughout the game. Decisions should have effects, and those effects offer feedback. Most importantly, we can keep in mind what Jesse Schell in The Art of Game Design calls the lens of the player. By thinking throughout the creation process about what the learner is seeing and doing, we can ensure that the content is both engaging and educational. Learner-centered design can help us to motivate and engage the learner, helping them to gain knowledge that has value outside of the game, and that will be a win for everyone.